Hey everyone, and welcome back to today's Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled you're here. Today, we're diving into something that is literally a game changer for anyone who creates data, trains models, or just operates in the Web3 space. We're talking about Codatta. Specifically, we're looking at how they're solving what is easily one of the biggest headaches in AI right now, making absolutely sure that creators get paid fairly when their data and their expertise actually power artificial intelligence. It's this fascinating bridge between human effort, AI agents, and on-chain assets. Let's get right into it.
Okay, let's dive into our roadmap for today. First, we'll look at the AI agent economy. Then, we'll explore ERC 8004, which is all about trusting those agents. Third, we've got X402 and pay-per-use payments. And finally, we'll wrap up with connecting data to dollars.
All right, part one, the AI agent economy.
So, to really wrap our heads around what Codatta is building, we have to look at the big picture of their ecosystem. Codatta essentially exists to turn both human work and AI agent work into verifiable, on-chain data assets. The whole goal here is to plug seamlessly right into the emerging agent economy. But, in this new economy where bots and humans are working side by side, we desperately need standardized ways to track exactly who did what. And more importantly, we need a flawless system that routes value back to whoever actually created that value.
Which brings us to part two, ERC 8004, trusting the agents. This is the first critical piece of infrastructure here.
You can think of ERC 8004 as the ultimate ID badge and resume for an AI worker. By definition, it's an Ethereum standard that adds a trust layer on top of agent protocols via 3 on-chain registries: identity, reputation, and validation. So, what does that actually mean for us? Well, it essentially allows AI agents to be discovered, evaluated, and judged by a completely shared, totally transparent record of their behavior right on Ethereum.
To make this a bit more concrete, let's consider how Codatta specifically uses this registry in the wild. Within their network, they have specialized agents helping out with pre-labeling, triage, and validation. They register transaction classifiers to sort out blockchain data, KYB triage agents for business verification, and policy validators. These aren't just invisible bots doing things in a black box. They are first-class, verifiable participants working right alongside human experts.
And it's really interesting to see just how deep this accountability goes across those 3 registries. The identity registry tracks the basic stuff, right? The agent's endpoint, its capabilities, basic pricing metadata, but the reputation registry, that's where it gets really fascinating. It tracks an agent's accept rate, any conflicts it's had with human experts, and even slashing events, which, by the way, is essentially firing or penalizing a bot for making a mistake. Finally, the validation registry links to off-chain logs and evaluation reports. So altogether, this proves these AI agents are fully auditable actors with a permanent record.
Now, the absolutely crucial point here is that Codatta doesn't just log what the agent did, it maps that activity straight back to human ownership. For every single job, Codatta's internal systems record which specific data portfolios were involved. The ERC 804 events include references to those exact data IDs right in their evidence fields. This means consumers don't just see a generic label, no, they see the exact agent that produced it, its entire behavioral history, and a precise link back to the human who owns the underlying data.
Which naturally leads us to a pretty massive question. If we have this perfectly transparent registry of who the agents are and what they did, how does the money actually flow? I mean, how do they get paid?
Let's move on to part 3 and find out. X402, pay-per-use payments. Think of this as the toll booth of the Codatta ecosystem. X402 is an open, chain-agnostic payment protocol. And here's a fun fact for you. It cleverly reuses the old HTTP 402 payment required status code. That code was actually created back in the 90s, but honestly, it was barely ever used until crypto came along. What this does is allow clients, whether they're humans or AI agents, to pay for APIs and content directly over an HTTP connection using crypto, which is typically stablecoins. It is entirely native to the web protocols we're already using every single day. To really appreciate this, we have to compare it to how we used to do things. The old way of monetizing an API was, well, it was a headache. It involved setting up clunky, separate billing systems, managing super complex subscriptions, and dealing with the absolute pain of API key management. The Codatta way, powered by X402, is just vastly superior. It enables fine-grained per-request monetization. So if an agent just needs to score one transaction or fetch one tiny dataset slice, it pays for exactly that, directly over HTTP with zero friction. The mechanics of this are just beautifully automated. Here's the simple 3-step recipe.
Step 1. The client calls the paid API endpoint. Step 2. Codatta pauses the request and returns the 402 payment required status, right alongside the X402 payment details, meaning the exact amount, currency, destination, and expiry. Step 3. The client app or agent simply pays that amount on-chain and retries the request, using an X402 authorization header. Boom. Access granted. It is an incredibly smooth handshake between data, agents, and money.
Let's see how this all builds together in part 4, connecting data to dollars.
Okay, so let's say an X402 payment has just settled to Codatta. What happens next? Well, Codatta's internal indexers immediately jump into action to attribute that revenue. First, they map the API call back to the specific data portfolios that were used. Then, they identify the exact agents that contributed and the precise humans who supplied the data. Finally, the system applies predefined staking and ownership rules to determine exactly who gets what fraction of a cent.
And this perfectly illustrates the final outcome. The revenue is sliced up and distributed fairly based on that strict ownership graph we just talked about. A portion goes directly to the human contributors who supplied the original expertise. Another portion goes to the operators running the AI agents, and the remainder is routed right back to the protocol treasury to keep the whole ecosystem running smoothly.
Because X402 is designed from the ground up for low-friction on-chain payments, the payout structure is, frankly, revolutionary. Contributors don't have to wait around for some slow, batched monthly check to arrive in the mail or finally hit their bank account. Instead, the rewards take the form of frequent, small micro-payouts. Literally, as your data is used across the internet, a continuous stream of value flows directly back to you in real time. So, putting it all together, how do these highly technical protocols actually solve a very human problem? Well, ERC 8004 turns Codatta agents into discoverable, highly auditable actors with a shared identity. Then, X402 turns every single API call into a seamless, programmable payment event. And finally, Codatta acts as the engine in the middle, routing that payment precisely through the ownership graph so everyone gets their fair cut.
I want to leave you with a quote straight from the source material that just perfectly captures their mission. When your data and expertise power AI, you get a verifiable share of the upside. Just take a moment to let the sheer impact of that promise sink in. In an era where large models often just scrape data without offering any credit or compensation, Codatta is out there building a mathematically verifiable system to ensure that you are actually rewarded. Which leaves us with one final, pretty provocative thought. Is this the future of all human work on the internet? As AI agents step up to do more and more of the heavy lifting, standardizing exactly how we track and pay for underlying human knowledge, well, it isn't just a neat trick. It really might be the foundation of the entire next web economy. Thank you so much for learning with me today. I hope this explainer sheds some light on the fascinating mechanics behind Codatta, ERC 8004, and 4102. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I will see you in the next explainer.